So my name is, good morning everyone, my name is Alex Shex. I am Deputy Director of Commercialization of Research in UKRI, and welcome to the UKRI webinar on, applicant webinar on the Proof of Concept funding opportunity. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we introduce the team and how the webinar is gonna work. So we have in excess of 250 people registered to attend today. This is the second webinar we are running. We ran one last week, and there is another one tomorrow at 3 p.m. UK time on Wednesday. And so don't worry if for some reason you're not able to attend or your connection breaks down. There will be another opportunity. All three webinars are exactly the same with the same slides. There will be, so we are recording this one and we will record the next one as well. That will be made available online with a slide deck as well as the question. So the webinar itself will last approximately 30 minutes. And then you will have an opportunity to ask questions, and you can do so either using the Q&A chat available, so asking your question online, and those will be moderated by my colleague Nishta, and we'll try to answer as many as we can. There'll also be an opportunity to raise your electronic hand, and upon doing so, we will let you unmute and come in to ask a question live if you wish to do so. Hopefully, with a number of people attending today, we will not be able to either answer all the questions live or answer all the questions you're asking. However, we'll endeavor to publish those FAQs once the free webinar have completed, and that will be available online. So as I said, just a quick introduction. So my name is Alex Shex. I'll be leading on some of the introduction to the proof of concept, and then I'll pass over to the team with me today, and I'll let them introduce themselves. So Heather.
Thanks, Alex. I'm Heather McLean, and I'm Head of Research Commercialization at UKRI, and I'll be running through some of the slides to get today with Alex. Nishta?
Hi, I'm Nishta. I'm the Senior Research Commercialization Manager within the team, and I'll be helping moderating the Q&A today.
And with us today, we also have Stephen. Stephen works with TFS, which is the funding platform. Stephen, if you want to say a few words.
Yes, hi, I'm Stephen Powell. I manage the help desk for the TFS system and also the outgoing JER system.
Oh, Alex, you're on mute still.
That's bound to happen at least one day. Unfortunately, that's the day we record. Thank you, Stephen, as I said, to be with us today and taking those questions if there is some on the TFS platform. So let's start. So before we start the webinar, we just have a quick survey for you to complete, just for us to be able to better understand who you are and what part of the research, the institutions you're part of. So if you could do that, that'll be really helpful to help us understand. Oh, thank you. So that's great. So while people are still completing that or joining the webinar, I think it's worth highlighting that it's fairly similar in terms of proportion to the first webinar. So around 60% of applicants, and then a split between research office or technology transfer office. So hopefully the webinar will be helpful to you both as applicant, but also in the support function of university and research organization, either as part of the research office and tech transfer office. So now I'll share my screen. And we'll go through the slide deck. So hopefully the team can give me a thumbs up if you can see the welcome slide. Excellent. Yep. Thank you for that. So welcome, as I said earlier, to this webinar on the proof of concept. If you were expecting something else, you are in the wrong meeting. So it's up to you if you want to stay or not. So UKRI launched for the first time a cross-council research commercialization proof of concept. The aim of that proof of concept funding opportunities is to help support that commercialization of research and via a different route to enable either new spinouts, social venture, licensing, but also other commercialization pathway. So we're not precluding what the commercialization outcome should be. It is really to help that early stage support for research commercialization. It is available, an application or welcome from any disciplines across all the council of UKRI. And more importantly, there is no link to pre-existing UKRI funding required. So what does that mean is that you don't have to have received funding from UKRI in order to apply to the proof of concept. So your research might have arisen from other type of funding at an eligible institution. What's really important is the proof of concept funding opportunity is not a discovery-driven research opportunity. It will not support fundamental blue sky or curiosity-driven research. It is really to support that application of existing research, if you like, to that commercialization endeavor. And for that purpose, it will support both the kind of technical and the commercialization development of research at what we call a kind of a pre-commercial activities, in the sense that it is a research grant which is directed at academic institutions. So doing that early stage work, if you like, but still very applied. Sorry. So as I said, what is the type of funding available? So it is disciplinary agnostic, reiterating that. And it's really to help develop those projects to increase that readiness of technology, product, process, and services towards an intended market or use, if you like. It is a grant. The total fund available are £9 million, and we will fund projects in the range of £100,000 to £250,000 at 80% FEC for a duration between 6 and 12 months maximum. So a minimum amount of 6 months, a maximum duration of 12 months. How to apply. So if you're attending this webinar, it's because you already probably submitted as applicant an intention to submit, which was a mandatory stage that closed on the 3rd of March. And then we are inviting via your research offices, if you're eligible, to make a full application on the funding service. So this funding opportunity is delivered on the UKRI new funding service and not on JES. And if you have any question around TFS, obviously Stephen is here to help you on that. The application themselves are going to be triaged by your research office or a combination of research office, tech transfer office, or whatever support is available in your research organization. And the proof of concept funding opportunity itself opened on the 12th of March and is closing on the 29th of May at 4 p.m. UK time. And in order to apply, obviously you need to have been triaged by your organization, and you will need to demonstrate that kind of support from your application by your research organization. So the reason why we had to do this is because obviously we knew that there might be high demand for such proof of concept funding opportunity, but we didn't know where that demand might be, and we didn't know in the volume of that demand. And it's fair to say that we had a large number of intention to submit, in excess of 2,800 made across more than 150 research organizations. And to ensure that everybody had a fair, inverted comma, chance in success, we wanted to maintain a reasonable success rate, and we wanted that to be shared across many different research organizations, universities across the UK. So for that to happen, we use a similar way of doing that as per the Future Leader Fellowship, sorry. And so we are applying a cap to the number of applications that each eligible research organization can put forward as part of this funding opportunity. And you should have been communicated this by return of email and by your research office. If you are unsure of what the application cap is at your own institution, that has been published and it is available on our website, and the link is in this slide, and we'll circulate that later. So what are the key deadline for this funding opportunity? Let's recap shortly. So obviously that mandatory intention to submit open on the 20th of January and close on the 3rd of March. That was at the same time as a pre-announcement for the call. So you will have had the opportunity to look at what is being asked as part of that funding opportunity since it was pre-announced. We are now in the invitation stage where the call is actually open on TFS and published on the Finding Finder on the UKRI website as well. And that will go close, as I said, on the 29th of May. We will then go through a peer review process in summer, June and July for grant decision to be made late in the summer. And we need grant to start really soon after that. And so the engagement with research officers as well to make sure that this is happened promptly because of some of the spend that we need to incur in the next financial year. So we are currently at the kind of funding application stage. The opportunities are already opened, as I said, but you cannot actually access the application link directly on the UKRI website because that link has been sent solely to your research offices because, as I said, they are responsible for the triage and making sure that only a certain number of applications within the cap of your institution are put forward. How do you access actually the funding service if you are unfamiliar with the system, which is a new system still? So you can access the funding service via the UKRI website, either directly a link to the TFS or via the Funding Finder. There is guidance on how to do that and how you actually sign in for the UKRI funding service and how applicants can actually use the service. But the link itself, linking the opportunity description to the TFS link is with your research office. So this is how a web page describing how applicant can actually use the service. And if you're unfamiliar, I will really invite you to look into this. There is also a dedicated page for research offices and how they engage with the system. So I'm now going to hand over to Eva, who's going to describe the application assessment area and notably the different questions you're going to be faced with when applying to the proof of concept. It's worth highlighting that we've designed this webinar with applicant in mind, but also there's no substitute for actually reading the guidance. So don't assume that because you attended that webinar, you know everything there is to know about the proof of concept and how to apply and what the question will be asked, because everything is actually disclosed online. And I'll really invite everyone to read that guidance in detail. So thank you, and I'll hand over to Eva.
Thank you, Alex. Yes, Alex is right. You should definitely read the guidance. There will be slightly more detail in the guidance than there are on these slides, obviously. So it's really important you do that. You can see here, these are the application assessment areas or the criteria that will be used to assess your proposal. Some of them will be specific to this particular type of opportunity, and others will be more familiar to you. Maybe you've seen them before in other applications that you've made. Next slide, Alex. Thank you. So the questions that are specific to the proof of concept, they've been drafted with input from across the research commercialization community. in response to the 2021 government's innovation strategy. Oh, back one slide, please, Alex. Thank you. And while you might not have all the answers to the questions to a full extent, what we're really looking for you to do is to demonstrate how you intend to prove the concept of your idea, hence the title of this opportunity, throughout the length and the cost of your project. Next slide, please. And these questions will cover two main elements. So there's the technical or practical side of your project, and then there's the commercial side. So how are you actually going to commercialize what you're producing? And what's also really important to highlight here is that your applicant and the team capability to deliver element really needs to be quite strong, and it needs to include a team that has all the skills, experience and expertise required for success across both those technical or practical elements and also the commercial side of things. Next slide, please. So I'm now going to run through all of the questions. Again, just to highlight that there is more detail than on these slides in the actual guidance that you can find online. But I thought it would be useful just to give you a bit of insight, maybe a few tips on how to answer them, what the assessors are looking for, that sort of thing. So the first question is on the opportunity and market analysis. And that is, what is the opportunity you are looking to exploit, or what challenge will your project address? So what kind of thing are you bringing into the world? What is it that you're actually looking to achieve? And a tip here is use evidence, including numbers and analysis. So what's the market research data you might have to illustrate your points? Next slide, please, Alex. And then the route to market. So how would your proposed project progress the innovation towards its intended users or the market itself? And a little tip here. So although you might not take your project all the way to the market yourself, especially in this proof of concept opportunity, but how are you intending to demonstrate that you have the understanding and the steps, and know that what kind of partnerships are required to actually achieve that in the long term? Next slide, please. So another of the questions that you'll be faced with is around the intellectual property management and communication of this. So what is your IP exploitation plan? And a little tip around this one is, if you have a project partner, please use the section to describe the agreed arrangements that you have, and also think about the sort of the background and foreground IP, how you make publications, that sort of thing, and check the UKRI terms and conditions on this as well. Next slide, please. So the applicant, and team capability to deliver question. So why are you the right individual or the right team to successfully deliver the proposed work? And again, just to go back to what I sort of illustrated earlier, so the team needs to have all the skills, experience and expertise required for success across both those sort of technical, practical elements, but also that commercial side of things as well. And in this section, we would like you to, if you have a project partner, explain why they are important to success of this project. Next slide, please. So your resources and cost justification. What will you need to deliver your proposed work, and how much will it cost? And obviously there's a range of funding for this particular proof of concept, and you should tailor your project or tailor your sort of costs to what your project requires, not just ask for the maximum amount because you can. In particular, we'd like you to look at whether or not you might need, for instance, consultancy or subcontractors, which are eligible in this particular opportunity. But they will be obviously assessed for appropriateness and also value for money. So just keep that in mind. Next slide, please, Alex. Ethics and responsible research and innovation. So what are the ethical implications and issues relating to your proposed work? And you can use the Good Research Hub for guidance on this and highlight any risks in your proposal and make sure you're thinking about the mitigations you have, and what's your plan on making sure you manage those risks. Next slide, please, Alex. So securing support from your research organisation, obviously Alex has already highlighted how important this is and the role that your technology transfer office or research office is taking in sort of triaging and implementing those demand management caps they've had to use. So we really are looking for a strong statement of support from your research organisation here. And we'd like you to include a significant person's name, their position, office or department that they're within. Next slide, please. And here, this is a screenshot. We thought it might be useful just in case you haven't seen TFS before, just to give you a little bit of a flavour of what it might look like. So on the right side here, you can see there's a screenshot of this particular question on your organisation support. There's a word limit here of 300. And here, we'd like you to describe the level of support and its purpose in relation to your project. And also describe, if appropriate, there's any leverage support that you're getting from your research organisation. Next slide, please. Project partners. So when making an application, project leads will be asked to describe, if you have any, who your research, who your project partners are, indicate whether each project partner is making a direct or indirect contribution, and give a contribution in terms of a monetary value. So if that is an indirect contribution they're making, please give an estimated monetary value for that. Next slide, please. And again, here's a screenshot of what that will look like on the right-hand side. You can see where you're asked for the contact information for your project partner. Next slide, please. And this is a continuation of a screenshot of this. And you can see here on the right-hand side where you can put in the indirect contribution value, for instance. Next slide, please. Facilities. So you may need the use of facilities for your proposed work. And we would, a tip here is make sure that you have the prior agreement to use those facilities, so that if you're offered the funding, you will be able to actually continue your project, because obviously we have a quite strict spend profile that we need to stick to. Next slide, please, Alex. Trusted research and innovation. So does the proposed work involve international collaboration in a sensitive research or technology area? And really would like you to consider here the area of your work and its reach in relation to not only potentially international partners, but also its sort of commercialization, obviously. So think about national security or the Investment Act, for instance. Next slide, please. And finally, this next question is around the classification of your proposed project. So this is really important and will help us identify the panel assessors which were asked to look at your work around the research area or the sort of the discipline area, and also the commercialization pathway. So here we were going to be asking you for a minimum of 2 and no more than 4 keywords from a list that's provided. So we encourage you to click on this list and actually copy and paste in the codes. So use the precise codes and the wording of the research areas and separate them by a semicolon, please. You are also permitted 1 free text keyword or phrase, reserved really where you really think that, potentially this list doesn't really cover it, and you really want to give us a little bit more information to make sure your proposal gets seen by the right people. Next slide, please. And this is on the right hand side. You can see here a screen print again of what that will actually look like on the system. And there are 34 sort of research or discipline related areas, and also there's a commercialization pathways as well. And I put those in a little box at the bottom there. And You can see they include things like licensing, social ventures, spinouts, products, processes, services, and also technologies. And please don't forget to use a semicolon to separate these areas, just to make it a little bit easier for us to read them. Next slide. So this is where I hand back to Alex.
So thank you, yeah, thank brilliant. Thank you for that. Really, really useful. So the proof of concept funding opportunities is actually awarded as a non-subsidy under the Subsidy Control Act of 2022. And so what's really important is for us to consider, therefore, what does that mean for how the output of research from those particular grants are going to be managed. And what that means is that during the duration of a grant, no single enterprise can benefit preferentially from that proof of concept grant because it's awarded as a non-subsidy. And so we'll strongly encourage you to have a look at the UKRI term and condition of grants, which are already published online on our website, notably in relation to subsidy control and the obligation of the research organization that receive the funding, but also seek your own research institution advice as to what that actually means and what you're entitled and can and cannot do. It is actually useful to highlight that it is no different actually from what university do in terms of managing the output of research and notably entering agreement and so on and so forth from what they usually normally do as best practice. So, but it's worth checking and just being aware. That is actually important with regards to project partners, if you have project partners involved in your project, and actually how do you then describe, as Ever already highlighted, the importance of the IP management as part of that project, and that will be considered alongside the kind of compliance to the Subsidy Control Act. Also worth highlighting a few things on intellectual property. So the proof of concept funding opportunity will be awarded under the normal UKRI term and condition of grants, which means that the foreground IP generated during those proof of concept grants will belong to the research organization that generates them. And so if you have partner, we will expect that you will enter a formal collaboration agreement that set up the arrangements for that collaboration and notably the management of the IP, as highlighted in your IP section, but notably considering also the right to exploitation. Those collaboration agreements are no longer prerequisites at the onset when you put forward a grant application, but we reserve a right to actually ask to see them once if the grant is approved for funding, and later on as part of a normal audit trail. It's also worth highlighting that a proof of concept grant cannot be used to the direct filing of IP rights, such as patent or registered trademark, for example, as per normal Research Council policy. So now that brings an end to the kind of a formal slide for this webinar, and we have, as I said, half an hour for questions. So I'll probably stop sharing and welcome questions online, either via the Q&A or live. And obviously, our colleague Nishta is going to moderate these questions. Thank you very much, Nishta.
Yeah. First question, it has been asked a couple of times. What level of technology readiness, commercial readiness, can you comment of these projects should be?
Really interesting question. That's one we actually face quite a few times already. And it's actually a question which is quite difficult to answer because we are actually welcoming applications from across all different disciplines, and technology readiness level, or TRLs as they're known, are not always suited to all those different disciplines. So it's actually quite difficult. But we're looking for things which are quite applied in nature. So not things which are kind of de novo or curiosity-driven research, things which are applied, things which actually could reach out quite high maybe in terms of both the technical readiness, emerging commercial readiness. So we want you to be able to de-risk further your research so that it could be of interest to other parties, for example, and partners, and really being able to demonstrate how your proposed work is unlocking some of that applicability, if you like, or the development of a product or process or service. How can I describe that in terms of TRLs? I'm reluctant to do that because, as I said, we wanted to apply both to shape discipline as well as STEM disciplines. But I wonder if somebody else in the team had a better idea of how describing it.
I can say how I would personally describe it. I'm not sure if it's a sort of description that we'd put on our website, but it more or less comes down to, is it something that you think could improve somebody's life? Is it something that, you know, would actually be something that somebody could actually use in the everyday world? And when we're talking about commercializing that, you know, how will it actually get into their hands? Or if it's not something that's physical, you know, how will it be something that they actually could buy or interact with? And what's that pathway that you're going to use to get there? I hope that answers this question.
Thank you. Alex, can you expand a little bit on the non-subsidy explanation? If we have an industry partner, how can they benefit from the results of POC project? And can you talk a bit more about project partners and subcontracting in the same thing as well?
Yeah. So let's take the easy one first. So in terms of subcontracting, so that normal UKRI term and condition apply with regard to subcontracting. So if you have a subcontractor as part of your project, therefore they are being paid to deliver a specific technical aspect, for example, or as a consultant. But as a subcontractor means that they cannot benefit any of the intellectual output from that project because it's actually a contract, they are being paid, and then the output of that belongs to the commissioning party, so the university in that respect. So check the subcontracting rules on UKRI term and conditions and UKRI website. When talking about subsidy, what we mean is that the output of a grant, because it's awarded as non-subsidy, cannot benefit directly or uncompetitively a specific enterprise as defined by the Subsidy Control Act. And that means that it doesn't mean that we don't want to see things being commercialized and actually benefiting enterprise, but it needs to be done in an open way, and it needs to be done according to market rules. So, and that's what I mean in saying that it is no different from the way university usually tend to do things when either entering a license or entering subsequent collaborations. So in the sense, so I hope that helped with that. So contact your tech transfer office and see what those rules are as part of the government website. There's guidance for subsidy control and what it means. But it's no different from what usually you do. What we will not expect to see as part of your IP management section, for example, is that all the output of the grants will go directly to a single enterprise without any royalty-bearing license, for example, or anything like that. So just be mindful of that. It's no different from what usually university do.
Can you talk a bit more about the panel composition and how are you ensuring confidentiality in the review process? Is there anything different from a normal review process?
Thanks, Nishta. I can start this one if that helps. So the assessors will have both the technical or practical or discipline expertise, as well as the commercial expertise that were necessary to assess your proposal. And that's why it's really important, as I said, to make sure that you give us the information that we need to actually select those people by using that list that we provide, please. So yeah, they will cover both of those elements. And what was the second part of the question, Nishta?
About confidentiality within the review process?
Yeah, I mean, that's the standard answer to that. So that full confidentiality from panel members and assessors.
Yeah, so the normal UKRI process will apply to the peer review process. And in that sense, the application to a UKRI funding opportunity is done in total confidence with our peer review members or assessors. And so therefore doesn't constitute a disclosure, actually, which is very important for protecting IP and patenting notably. So that's a normal process. And assessors, when agreeing to review or agreeing to adhere to confidentiality clauses as part of the system.
I think it's more of a comment, but I just want to make it clear. So I think in our reference, we're keeping our referring to universities, but we want to mean all research organizations which are eligible for UKRI funding. We are not implying that there is a bias for or against other research organizations, all research organizations. It's vernacular that this university is slipping in. Just want to make it clear as there's a comment about that.
Thanks,
And
Lisa.
there are some comments about the route to market and about opportunity. Is there be a preference towards if the exploitation is within the UK or outside the UK?
So I can start to answer this question. So there has to be a really good justification why it would be outside of the UK, really. So obviously this is UKRI is looking to kind of support the UK. It is something that's funded by UK taxpayers. So really, we want the value for money to be going back into our economy, really, and the people who benefit in this country. However, if there's some really good justification, that will obviously be taken into account by the panel and by the assessors. So I think it really does depend upon the circumstances, but it does need to be well justified.
We can take some questions from the live people. Khalid, are you able to unmute yourself? Khalid Shukri.
Hi there. Thank you for allowing me to ask a question. I've got a question regarding partners. Is an overseas partner or a company entitled to some of the funding?
Short answer is no, I think, in that project partner cannot derive funding from the grants directly.
Okay. Is it possible that you could ask a company that's outside the UK to work for you as a subcontractor, for example?
Yes, you can, but you'll have same thing as I think Ever already explained. You have to justify it as to why they are the sole partner that or subcontractor available. They might have some unique capability that doesn't exist in the UK, but that'll have to be justified.
Okay, thank you.
Can we have Gasper Zamora next, please? Luciana.
Yes, thank you. Regarding the partner, or what in what happened with universities is that we don't have people with commercial acumen or background. Is it possible to subcontract? What is better, to subcontract an external consultant with commercial experience or to hire someone in our payroll for the time of the project as commercial expert for our specific project? Because I understand you want to see what is the commercial exploitation plan or route to market. So what is there any preference to subcontract or contract someone in our payroll with that experience?
I mean, Alex might have something to add on top, but no, I don't. It just needs to be well justified and appropriate for your particular project and circumstances. And I do like the question though, because it really highlights the need to make sure that you do have a team capable to actually make a success, both those technical and sort of practical elements, but also that commercialization element as well. So I love the question. Alex, I don't know if you have anything else to add on that.
No. I think that's thank you, Eva. I think it's exactly right. It's actually really important to consider both the technical and commercialization aspect of those projects. And if you feel that your team can be supplemented with commercial expertise, you can actually do either in either getting somebody on a consultancy basis to help you with that commercialization aspect, or actually embed somebody in your team through payroll. And the choice is entirely yours, depending on the time frame of your project, depending on the cost, and what you're trying to achieve. So we don't want to be preclusive of what is best. It's really depending to you, your institution, and the decision you want to make. But both are eligible.
Thank you. Just to confirm there, if my project partner, the industry partner, has someone in their team, can I potentially subcontract this person or take time of that person as part of the project then? Instead of recruit someone, maybe I can take someone from the industry partner team.
That could be actually potentially a good opportunity. You might need to double check with all the terms and conditions and eligibility criteria from the UKRI website, but it is feasible. That might create some maybe tension or conflict of interest, so you might need to address, and you need to double check around with subsidy control and things like that. But yes, there could be a solution.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last in-person question by Claudia, please. Are you able to unmute yourself? Claudia.
Sorry. All right. Yeah. Hi. A couple of questions, because I really can't. I'm really struggling to understand between subcontractor and partner. So if I have a commercial partner who is ready to sell into the NHS, but through a manufacturer who's maybe located outside the NHS or outside the UK, because obviously the manufacturer promised to do it at a fraction of the cost of the designers we found in the UK. How does that work?
I'm tempted here to say we can't really comment on specific examples, but I'll let Alex jump in.
Yeah, no, exactly that. So I'm not quite sure I understand your question in terms of how does that work. I mean, it's up to you to describe how will that work and what are the agreements that will be in place to ensure that commercialization of research in the context of a funding opportunity and the proof of concept as described by the core proposal. I'm not sure I can comment. I mean, probably not appropriate to comment live on a webinar for your specific of your project, considering some of the sensitivity around it, maybe for commercialization. So I'll invite you maybe to either drop us an email if it's more appropriate, or engage with your research organization and consider the different criteria that we have.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to find out if there would be a conflict of interest, because you said the money needs to stay in the UK ideally. So
what we mean is that we're not awarding the proof of concept as subsidy. And if you're familiar with what Innovate UK does, often Innovate UK awards subsidy, so they're able to subsidize and award funding to companies directly. This is not the case as part of a proof of concept. This is an academic-led project, admittedly to further the technicality and application of the research towards commercialization goals and endeavor, but it is not subsidy.
Oh, I see. I think I have the answer now. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there going to be any future calls, and are the people unsuccessful in this round be eligible to apply for the next POC round if there is one?
Alex, I don't know if you want to take that one.
Sorry,
okay.
I have to admit I've been very bad. I've been reading another question, so I didn't listen to this one.
Do you mind repeating it?
Will there be future POC calls, and if there is going to be a call, will the unsuccessful applications from this round be eligible to apply?
So really pertinent question. So the proof of concept funding opportunities is actually been designed as part of a government response to the independent spinout review. And the government announced that we will be supporting additional funding for proof of concept to the tune of 40 million over the next 5 years. However, this is dependent on the success of the spending review next year. So we have money allocated for this year, hence why we were able to launch this call. And as a government agency, a government-sponsored agency, we and a responsible UKRI agency will look to secure funding to develop subsequent call in future years, depending on the outcome of the spending review. So while we intended and hope that that will be successful, but it's entirely dependent on that on the future spending review. I hope that's out. So then will further applicant be invited or can we apply? That's also a really pertinent question. I think it'll depend on as to the reason as to why they haven't been successful, and we'll take a view as to how can we accommodate that. So I think usually UKRI doesn't accommodate resubmissions. And so, but I think it depends as to the reason why.
I think what Alex is saying, that uninvited resubmissions will not be allowed, but if we invite a particular application, then that will depend on individual circumstances. I think it's a question about sort of demand management ITS. If they are within the cap, is the applicant allowed to change their application, what they were intending with from the ITS to the full application?
So I mean, the intention to submit was, for all intended purposes, a name, a contact details, and a title. And so there was no project descriptive as part of the intention to submit. So so I think that is the question in the sense that there is very little information as part of that.
Yeah, so as long as that information doesn't change, I don't think we will be any the wiser. I think that's what Alex is trying to say.
And also the title was a working title. It didn't have to, because we understand it changes when you're actually developing the application. So we understand as long as the lead and the organization is within the same organization's cap, it should be fine. Exactly. Will be giving any feedback to the unsuccessful applicants?
The short answer is no.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, really sorry.
Yeah. But we are learning from this opportunity, so it will be part of our lessons learned if we are able to do that in the future.
Absolutely.
Can you say something more on the facilities? Is this a description of institution and partners facilities, or is it about access to industrial, national, international facilities outside of the institution and partners?
It's if there's facilities that you need to gain access to, it's to describe how you have done so. I think that's really the short answer to that. To make sure that your proposal really is viable.
So I think is entirely correct. As part of your project, in taking your research forward, you might need to access specific type of infrastructure and facilities to let's say scale up some of your projects. You might need to access. So let's take an example. You might need to access some of the facility provided by the Catapult, for example. And so therefore that will be entirely eligible as part of your project, or by other research center funded by UKRI or not, actually. And it's about you to justifying why do you need access to those facilities and making sure that that you have the right to access them.
Thank you. We can take last few live question. Maze F. Alnaday.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I was wondering, could you elaborate a little bit further about the IP exploitation? You mentioned something about how to manage that with publications. If you can give a bit more details in here, disentangle a little bit.
So one of the main questions as part of your application will be to describe how you intend the intellectual property generated through your project or your background intellectual property to be managed. Because the proof of concept funding opportunities awarded under normal UKRI term and condition of grants, there is an expectation that the output of your research through that project will be published. And so therefore you need to be able to reconcile the IP protection if required in order to take your project forward commercially with the need to publish. So you need to be able to describe that you will manage that and make sure that publication doesn't compromise, for example, the IP protection. That there is a way of doing that. But also explain the relationship that you might have with your project partners and that IP is going to be managed going forward during the project itself and post once the project and the funding finished, actually.
Right. So if we are essentially in the pre-filing stage and we are going to be pre-filing and then promising or committing to publications post pre-filing or post-filing, that should be essentially aligned with the requirement.
Exactly that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Avila Martinez Juan.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Yeah, just wanted to confirm whether, the proof of concept ownership does it have to be necessarily led by the academic? Does it have to be, something that comes from a research project and then has reached that particular stage? Or could it be commercial IP that is looking to develop a proof of concept and then the academic is in the project as a consultant rather?
So thank you for that. It's a really pertinent question. And the answer is that those are academic-led projects. So we are looking to support university research organization, researcher academic-led project for proof of concept. And while we understand and acknowledge that project partners are often very useful in shaping that research going forward, because of understanding of market, for example, those are not. We are not expecting the academic to be a consultant as part of a user company-led project. So the answer to your question is no.
Okay, thank you.
In the interest of time, I have two questions to ask. One of them that is proof of concept, the future way for funding for commercialization. And similarly, someone has asked about the FOF scheme. Is it going to be subsumed or is POC going to supersede, subsume other commercialization funding opportunities? Just to make it clear that FOF is currently open. So if your project is eligible for BBSRC's FOF scheme, please apply to that. And now I hand over to Heather.
Thanks. So yes, really well highlighted that it does say in the guidance as well that if there's a scheme at UKRI that you could actually put your project into, really you should be putting it into that rather than the proof of concept. And this is not going to supersede any other opportunities that are already running or that will run in the future. The proof of concept is a new scheme, which, as Alex has already highlighted, hopefully will continue. And funding was sort of highlighted by the government to continue it for 5 years, which obviously we do have to make sure that we actually are able to get through the next SR. But yeah, it's not replacing anything. It's in addition to. But if you are eligible for another scheme, that is that you should be applying for that scheme rather than this.
I was going to pick up this question by Sudakshina Murdan, but as they have raised their hand, I'll allow them to ask the question.
Hello, thank you. So my question is about commercialization. I need funding to produce a prototype. I can't commercialize a prototype, but the prototype will help me to get big pharma on board to demonstrate the potential. So does that fit in with the commercialization need?
Absolutely. Is the short answer I can provide. So yes,
Yeah.
it's exactly what. So being able to develop a prototype and demonstrate its use and applicability and how it works is exactly what some aspect of a proof of concept might be about.
But then also we would be looking for you to also explain how you will are seeking to actually then commercialize it as well. So it does need that element included in your project.
Thank you.
We have last 3 minutes. Is there anything, Heather, you would like to highlight, say, tell, or would I take the question, Alex?
No, just please read the guidance. We haven't covered absolutely everything in total detail today, although hopefully we've done a good job of kind of introducing it and answering as many questions as we can. We will be looking to answer all your questions and publish a sort of an FAQ-like document as soon as we can after the next webinar. I don't know, Alex, can I pass over to you to just finalize?
Thank you very much. So thank you very much to the team to putting the slides together and answering those questions. Thank you very much for your interest in applying to the proof of concept. We really look forward to seeing your applications. And many thanks to the research offices and tech transfer offices in your own institutions, universities, and research centers for the work they are doing currently in triaging that. We understand it is difficult and we apologize for that work created there, but it's really great to see that level of interest for something that it could really benefit UK in commercializing research. So we'll look forward to seeing your application. We'll go back to your question if we haven't been able to answer them today as part of an FAQ, and we'll publish the slide as well as the recording of this webinar. And I just wanted to say, yes, thank you for taking part. Thank you for your question, and looking forward to seeing your application.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And if you have any questions, please, you can reach out to commercialization@ukri.org. Yeah, and we will try our best to answer your question there as well.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.